Whether you're new to the game or you're just getting back into it, or if you're just looking for some extra tips and tricks on how to optimize your gameplay, this will be the perfect video for you. I'm going to guide you through your first 7 days up to and hopefully safely through your first Horde night and explain all the important game mechanics along the way. Here's a list of topics I'm going to cover, and there are timestamps in the description if you want to jump ahead or reference back in the future. Otherwise, let's begin. To start off with, you're going to need to choose a map and check on your settings. You have a few maps to choose from. Novice Gain is a handmade map. Then there's pre-gen maps, which are preloaded onto your computer, but they're just made using the in-game map generator. Or you can just generate your own, which only takes a few minutes to do. In terms of game options, I would recommend leaving everything at default if you're a true beginner. Increasing the game difficulty simply reduces your damage to zombies and increases their damage to you. And Blood Moon Count represents the absolute maximum number of zombies that can be alive at the same time during Horde Night, but we'll talk more on that setting later. But for now, let's jump right in and get started. When you first spawn in, there shouldn't be any zombies nearby, so you can start preparing in safety. And you'll have the newbie coat for the first 5 levels, which blocks XP loss when you die. Typically, when you die, your experience bar fills up to 25% and turns red. This is an XP debt that you need to work off before your XP returns to where it was when you died. There are indicators on what to do for the starter quest, so follow those instructions to complete them as fast as possible. Time is ticking on day 1 and you have a lot to do, and once you finish, you'll get 4 free skill points and directions to the nearest trader. So for a minute here, let's talk about those skill points. First, I recommend that you pick one of the 5 skill trees to adopt as your primary build. Perception builds utilize spears, explosives, and rifles and specialize in looting and salvaging. Strength builds use clubs, sledgehammers, and shotguns, and specialize in heavy armor and mining. Fortitude players will benefit from knuckles and machine guns, farming, and various health and wellness buffs. Agility players use knives, bows, and pistols. They move fast and jump high, and also specialize in stealth and light armor. Intellect players will use batons and robotics in combat and benefit from special trader benefits and crafting bonuses. Each build is effective in its own way, especially once you learn the ins and outs of how to make a good hybrid character that borrows the best skill perks from multiple classes. For example, a strength and fortitude hybrid that turns you into a very deadly brawler. But I would argue that strength alone is probably the most beginner-friendly. Shotguns and clubs are simple and really effective, and the mining perks will allow you to collect a surplus of resources that'll help you build a very strong base. The most important thing to note is that whatever you spend your skill points in will influence how many magazines of that type you will find, and magazines will unlock crafting recipes and increase crafted item quality. For the sake of this tutorial and describing how I would spend my first skill points, I'll recommend 1 point into a skill under the intellect tree called Advanced Engineering. This will help you unlock the workstations, traps, electrical components, and repair tools more quickly. Another point into clubs, and 1 into Miner 69er. You can just press W over the skill point and that'll spend it for you. This will help you fight better and mine more quickly, and help you find magazines to help you craft better clubs and tools as well. And with your final point, there's a lot of different directions you could go in. But for me, I'll usually just take a point directly into the attribute. And that's because that gives you increased headshot damage and increased dismemberment with the tools that are governed under that attribute. How you spend your skill points is entirely up to you, but a word from the wise here, there are a couple that you should avoid. And that includes Pack Mule. Pack Mule unlocks more carrying space in your backpack. Here's what your backpack will look like. You'll have 45 slots. The first 2 points into Pack Mule will unlock 3 spots, and the remaining 3 points will unlock 4 apiece. So you could unlock the entire backpack this way. But you'll also be able to craft pocket mods right off the bat. This will give you 1 additional spot in your backpack, and you can make 3. 1 for your pants, 1 for your shirt, and 1 for your coat once you have those. You'll also be on the lookout for a book called Needle and Thread Volume 7, which will allow you to craft double clothing pocket mods. Double clothing pocket mods will replace the single clothing pocket mods and will unlock 2 backpack spots apiece for a total of 6. And you should be on the lookout for armor pocket mods and take them whenever you can, whether that's taking them as quest rewards, finding them in loot, or purchasing them outright from the trader. And a combination of these should have your backpack unlocked in no time without spending any skill points. The other skill point to avoid would be Lucky Looter. It might sound tempting on the surface to have 5% better loot bonus, but this is a percentage of your loot stage. And if you click this button here for your character stats and then go to your core character stats, you can see your loot stage. Currently, my loot stage is 1, so 5% of 1 is less than 1. So a point into Lucky Looter on day 1 will do absolutely nothing for you. Trust me, it'll be much more effective later, so just hold off on it for now. So now that you have your skill points spent, make sure that you have the proper weapon for your class. The spear, club, and sledgehammer are easy enough to make, and you can get a bone knife after you harvest a couple of gut piles or chickens. The knuckle wraps and pipe baton are a little bit trickier. You can get iron from an iron node or a car or practically anything that's made out of metal. The leather you can get by scrapping office chairs, harvesting sofas, or getting them off of some dead animals. The pipe baton also takes leather, but also takes pipes, and you can get pipes easily from sinks or toilets, or just find it in trash like dumpsters. And so as you make your way to the trader, you'll want to loot everything as you go and kill everything you see along the way. You'll need the XP for more skill points, so kill and harvest rabbits, chickens, and deer if you see them, but probably avoid boar, wolves, mountain lions, bear, and coyotes for now. You probably just don't have the firepower quite yet to kill them. And once you're there, you can loot the compound, you'll meet the trader, and then you can sell off some things and start stockpiling dukes, which is the currency for the game. And you can safely sell off books and schematics if you've read them before. Just check this icon here at the top. If it's open, that means you've read it before and you can sell it, and if it's closed, it means it's unread and you should probably read it. You can sell magazines if you never intend on crafting that particular item set. So, for example, if you're going to be using clubs, you can probably just sell off all of your spear magazines. And take note of any important items that you see in the trader's inventory that you might want to save up for and buy a little bit later on. Here's a few books that I'm always on the lookout for. Pretty much all of the Urban Combat books, but in particular Urban Combat Volume 6, where armor doesn't slow you down in combat. I think this is probably my favorite book in the game. There's also a bunch of books that give you just a flat plus 10% damage, and getting the one for your weapon of choice will really help out in the long run. There's also Art of Mining Volume 3, where you can harvest more ore from mining when you're buzzed by coffee, and you'll probably be drinking coffee when you're mining anyway, so it's a good way to just get extra resources. There's Wasteland Treasures Volume 3, where you can get acid from various harvestable materials, such as cars and acid barrels and medicine cabinets. Acid is a really important late game crafting item, and so stockpiling it early on will help you out later on. And then of course there's Needle and Thread Volume 7, which we just discussed a second ago. And then there's a few powerful gear items that I really like to buy early on too, like a helmet light mod or a mining helmet, which improves visibility, the college jacket, which increases your run speed, there's a cigar, which gives you strength +1 and a bartering bonus, and finally, there's nerdy glasses, which will give you an intellect bonus and an XP bonus as well. And once I get all of these items, I pretty much never take them off. Traders will sell better quality and higher tech items as you level up your character and as you progress through higher tier quests. And speaking of quests, now it's time to start doing some questing. So grab your first job from the trader. If you do a buried supply, you'll have to go dig up a chest. A tier 1 chest has food or drink items, and a tier 2 or 3 chest will have weapons and armor. To start off, I usually place 4 blocks at each end of the circle. Then start in the middle and dig down 4 blocks. Make sure that you have a way to climb out easily, and then start digging in any direction. Every 10 blocks broken, there's a 25% chance to spawn between 1 and 3 zombies, so count as you go along so that you're prepared with a way out and a full stamina bar for the fight. And after every 10 blocks, the circle will shrink, so check the 4 blocks that you place down and see where the circle is going. This will help you decide what direction to dig in to find the chest. And after accessing the chest, you'll have time to sort your inventory, but once you close it, that's when the zombies will spawn. Fight them off, or you can just retreat back to the trader. It's up to you. There are also fetch jobs, clear jobs, and once you're into the tier 2s and above, you'll see fetch and clears, infested clears, and restore power quests. In a fetch, you just need to grab a satchel and you're done. It's easy, and so the reward is the lowest. Infested quests will send you to a location from the previous quest tier, but with double the zombies. The quest reward is also quite low, but you'll find valuable items in a special supply cache inside. Buried supply missions also give low quest rewards. Clear jobs and fetch and clear jobs give the best rewards, and restore powers also give good quest rewards, but only as good as a fetch and clear, so the added danger really isn't quite worth it. However, I do find that just getting a good variety of quests is more fun than just taking the same one over and over, trying to optimize my rewards. Completing 7 quests will unlock the next quest tier, but you can always choose jobs from the previous tier if you want. After completing a tier, you'll get a special reward bonus. The level 1 completion bonus will contain a water filter and a bicycle, and I'd recommend going for the bike. When you're out questing, look around for a house to squat in for a few days. Most players, including myself, will take up residence somewhere nearby where they can sort of stockpile their resources for a big base build later on. Your ideal candidate would be a brick or concrete building with a flat rooftop, just something to get you up and off the ground. You can always see the difficulty of the POI you're entering. The red skulls correlate to the tier of the POI, which represents both difficulty and the main loot chest located within. You'll find vending machines both at the trader and out in the wild. This is where you can pick up some special consumables. I usually look out for sugar butts, which increases your bartering skill, but just FYI, it costs 300 dukes and gives a 10% bartering bonus. So in order for it to pay for itself, you'll have to buy or sell at least 3,000 dukes worth of items. I'll also keep an eye out for eye candy, which will increase your loot stage and increase chances for better loot. But just like Lucky Looter, this is relative to your current level, so its impact on day 1 in the Pine Forest will be insignificant, whereas its impact later on, or if you're in like the Wasteland or in a high tier POI, could be profound. I suggest that you watch my latest loot explanation video because that topic is deep and complex, and I'll have it all broken down for you over there. Once you arrive at your quest location, you can either start the quest or do the dirty, the double loot trick. All that means is that you clear out and loot the POI before you start the quest, which will then reset everything, and then you can do it all over again. Once active, you can't stray too far away, or else you'll fail the quest, and if you die, you will also fail the quest. Make sure you're checking toolboxes and sinks, which are good places to find a wrench. A wrench will allow you to break down items for essential resources like forged iron and forged steel, as well as cars for all sorts of goodies. Wrenching cars and selling off the scrap is a great way to earn money, but if you find brass items like radiators, brass trophies, and doorknobs, don't sell them. Scrap them first, then sell the raw brass for almost twice as much. But eventually, you'll probably just want to stockpile the brass for future ammo production. Oh, and check all purses and toilets because you might find a level 1 pistol. I usually carry a bow with me even into the late game, but I prefer crossbows if you can find one. If you move slow and watch out for trash and broken glass on the floor, you can generally sneak up on most zombies and get that 3.5 times sneak damage bonus along with a well-aimed headshot, and that is usually enough to kill most zombies, even with just the primitive gear. And I sometimes use this trick here in a sticky situation. It's just 2 frames on top of each other, and I upgrade the top block. I can then attack and shoot down on multiple zombies while conducting periodic repairs. You can also block zombies in doorways and place hatches in doorways to make an improvised fighting position, and I always have a set of frames on my hotbar, if anything, just to do a quick nerd pull. And while you're out and about, keep an eye out for some first aid items that you should keep handy on your toolbar. There are a whole bunch of critical injuries and debuffs, and you should have a general sense of what they are, what they do, and how they're treated. Critical injuries are more common when you're at very low health, and your susceptibility to them increases the more you're getting hit by zombies. First off, we have the stun. This blurs your vision and slows your speed for a few seconds. There's nothing you can really do except for brace yourself and wait. But then there's the concussion. Same as the stun at first, but then can randomly reoccur as long as you have it. It reduces your max health by 25 and all attributes by 1, and it's cured with painkillers. Then there's the abrasion, probably the most common of all. This just slightly lowers your maximum health, and it's treated best with first aid kits, then first aid bandages, and then aloe cream in that order. Then we have bleeding, which rapidly reduces your health for 20 seconds. You can stem the bleeding with a regular bandage, which is the only thing that it's good for, a first aid bandage, or first aid kits. And then we have the deep laceration, really just a worse version of bleeding with negative 25 hit points and a higher chance to get more bleeding debuffs if you get hit subsequently. It's treated the same way as bleeding, but it's cured by first aid kits or sewing kits. Moving on to sprains, you can have sprained arms, which lower your maximum health and will slow your reload and swinging speed, and power attacks will actually hurt you. Then you have sprained legs, which will lower your run speed, and running and jumping can actually hurt you and extend the timer. These can be treated with steroids, but they cannot be cured. That is, unless you have 1 point into physician, in which case you can use a splint or cast to cure your sprain instantly. Fractures are basically the same as sprains, but they're quite a bit worse. They're treated with splints or even better with casts. And then there's fatigue, which reduces your maximum health and actually increases the damage that you take by 10%. And this is cured with vitamins. And then we're on to infection. Infections are common, and at level 1, infection will not really affect you. It increases with time and by getting hit by zombies, but at level 2, infections reduce stamina regeneration, and at level 3, it will additionally reduce your attributes. Infections are treated using honey, herbal antibiotics, or regular antibiotics, and are cured when the counter reaches 0. And you have a 20% chance to obtain honey from destroying these stumps here. And last but not least, we have dysentery. There's a chance to acquire this from certain foods and from murky water, and it periodically will reduce your food and water until it's treated with goldenrod tea. If you're looking for first aid, Trader Jen has the highest probability of carrying first aid supplies, but all traders should have at least a little bit. And early on, you should definitely have some bandages around. You can either use cloth that you find, or you can even pick cotton, craft the cotton into cloth, and then make the cloth into bandages. After you've done some questing and looting and you've found a place to call home, it's time to think about setting up a defense. Most houses can be converted into some kind of a defensible or at least safe base. Probably the most tried and true and easy way to fortify a house is to place a hatch in the doorway, and better yet, even place 2. This will be your window to fight through when the zombies come up, but living in an elevated area is definitely the way to go. I usually set up shop on the 2nd floor or the rooftop so that my belongings are safe, and then I tear down any stairs or ladders and make my own way up, usually just a ladder 2 blocks off the ground so that I can jump on, but the zombies cannot. This is where you'll want to set up some storages and at least have a campfire going. You'll aim to either craft or purchase all of the workstations: the cement mixer, forge, workbench, chemistry station, and finally the new dew collector. The dew collector and forge will probably be first. I recommend just buying the water filter from the trader. The dew collector needs to go outside or have an open space above it, but you can seal off the gap with bars or something like a trussing shape if you want. And if you took that point into advanced engineering, I'm sure you'll have the forge unlocked in no time. The rest will take a little while, but you might get close to having a workbench in the first 7 to 10 days, I'd say. At nighttime, the zombies will be faster and stronger. I usually spend the night cooking and crafting and getting organized for the next day. Sometimes I do a little bit of mining under my base just to stay busy. Just be careful that you're not doing too much because you can actually collapse your building if you're tunneling underneath important supports. And here's what you need to know about structural stability. This here is stability mode, a developer option. All of the green blocks have full support. They're connected to the ground, and the ground is connected to bedrock, the indestructible bottom layer of the world. And this is what us veterans will call the bedrock connection. Knock out a block and everything else above it loses the connection and turns yellow. Do this long enough and things can start turning red or even black and start collapsing. And even if you knock out some blocks below the structural pillar, the same thing will happen. And if there's no bedrock connection, blocks will borrow what is called horizontal support from whatever it's connected to. Let's just look at an example. The wood frame has a mass of 5 and a horizontal support of 40. 40 divided by 5 is 8. So you could build a pillar that has bedrock connection and attach 8 blocks horizontally before the 9th one will cause an overload to the pillar and everything will collapse. Notice this yellow outline as the load increases and the pink outline indicating imminent collapse. All blocks have different mass and horizontal support. So as you upgrade blocks, the mass might change. So you can overload an otherwise stable structure and cause a collapse without warning simply by upgrading blocks. Pay attention to which block is the load-bearing block, the one that the horizontal blocks are attached to, and upgrade this one first. If you have a solid pillar with multiple block planes extending out that don't have a bedrock connection, the pillar block that they connect to is the one that's supporting that line. So this row here is supported by this block, and this row here is supported by this block, and so on down the line. I've had a bunch of severe base collapses before, and I think if you play long enough, you will too, especially early on. You just gotta learn from your mistakes and rebuild. Another thing to touch on real quick is heat. Fires and noise will generate a percentage of heat. If the heat cooks up to 100%, it'll spawn in a screamer zombie. And if a screamer sees you, she'll scream in reinforcements, which will possibly include even more screamers that can kind of spiral out of control. Heat also cools down over time, and generally you'll be fine at home up to a point where you have multiple forges and campfires and chem stations and torches all running at once. Then you'll probably start seeing them. But mining also generates a lot of heat. But one little hot tip for you here is that if you sneak while you're mining, you'll generate a little bit less heat. So now you have a beginner home base, and you could probably fight your first horde here since they're usually on the kind of lighter side of things, but a beginner should definitely separate their home base from their dedicated horde base. And that's just because you really don't want to lose all of your crafting materials, your loot, workstations, your money, and some kind of a horde night disaster. And so for my most up-to-date comprehensive look at how to build horde bases and how that all works, you can check out this video right here, but I'll show you an incredibly effective, cheap, and simple horde base that you can make for day 7 and beyond. All you're going to do is create a platform 5 or 6 blocks above the ground, and remember, the 4 corners that you see right here are the ones that are stabilizing the whole structure. So make some more pillars, or maybe don't make the platform too big, and definitely don't upgrade the blocks in the middle of the platform before you're upgrading the ones in the corner that are the load-bearing blocks. Then you're going to create a front wall and a doorway, and opposite that you'll want to make a staircase. Then connect the two. The connection is important because without a way up to you, zombies will just simply target your supports and bring down the building. And so for this connection, some shapes are going to work better than others. You could use regular cubes and that'll work fine, but zombies will be able to stack up a little bit at the front fighting position. So I prefer to use very skinny shapes for this, like a centered security gate. Over time, you can explore new shapes to use for your walkways, for your stairs, for your fighting position, and ideally you'll want something that you can shoot and melee through. This overall design, I think, will work quite well for you because it's modular. You can build upward and outward if you want to expand your base. You can even dig a pit underneath the walkway for the zombies to fall down into. You can fill that up with spikes. Just be aware that you don't get any XP for spike kills. Eventually, you'll probably want to beef up the supports for added stability. You could create grenade chutes so that you can fight the zombies that are down below. And you can even place spikes up on the rooftop to fend off the vultures. And always make sure that you have a storage box inside somewhere to hold some of your extra supplies, some of the commonly forgotten items. When the horde finally arrives on day 7 at 2200, you can expect multiple waves of zombies. Wave size and difficulty depends on your game stage, but it cannot exceed the number that you set in the options when you first started out. For my most up-to-date video on how exactly Horde Night works, check out this link right here, and make sure that you bring the following. I developed a mnemonic, BARF, to help you remember. Buffs, such as Skull Crushers, Learning Elixir, and Recog. Ammo, including throwables. Repair materials, to repair your base, and also repair kits or supplies to repair your weapons. And finally, food and drink and first aid for all the stamina bonuses and HP regeneration that you'll get from those. So good luck with your first Horde Night battle, and once you kill all the zombies, it should be all quiet and you can safely head outside. If you die, it's really no big deal. The horde will end, all of the zombies will be killed off, and you can safely go and pick up your gear again. And you should probably find a few loot bags to search, and as you progress, you'll get more and more. This leads many players, including myself, to usually build their base in the more difficult biomes like the Wasteland, where you can then benefit from loot stage bonuses. This biome bonus is indicated by the yellow skulls in the top right corner of your screen. Just take note that every biome has a game stage modifier, and with every increase in your game stage, there's an increase in the difficulty of zombies as well as the quality of loot. This is the built-in risk-reward mechanic of the game. And now you've made it full circle through your first 7 days in 7 days to die. All that's left to do is now rinse and repeat. Expand your base, explore deeper into the world, complete more difficult quests, unlock better equipment, and fight bigger and badder zombies. That's the beauty of the game. There is no story other than that which you make for yourself. So just continue on until you get bored, then start all over again, applying the lessons learned in an entirely fresh playthrough. And if you're feeling like you've mastered the basics, you might want to check out my top 50 tips and tricks for 7 days to die, and I'll link that for you right here. Now, you might get to a point where you encounter some kind of a game bug. These things happen. Or you see some kind of a decoration that you want, but you can't seem to buy it or craft it. Or there's just some game mechanic that drives you insane. And for that, you have two options: cheats and mods. I'll cover cheats here first, so this is your cue to pause the video and skip ahead to the next section. Just check the timestamps below if you don't want to hear about how this works. And when I say cheating, I don't really mean that to sound derogatory. There's a lot of things that you can do, both in developer mode and in the creative menu, that can really enhance the player experience. Whereas cheats like God mode would kind of more take away from it. So let me review how to navigate these tools. First, open the console with F1, then type in DM, which stands for Developer Mode. You can also type in CM, which stands for Creative Menu. Then close the console again with F1. For developer mode, you'll want to press Q to enter God mode with fly mode, and you can kind of fly all around. Or you can just use H if you want to use fly mode alone without God mode. While flying, you can hit Shift, which will increase your speed. C and spacebar will change your elevation. And while holding Shift, you can press Q to do these big leaps forward. In the map, you can hold Control and then right-click where you want to teleport to instantly appear in that location. F5 will actually enter third person, which is kind of buggy. F6 will pull in the spawn menu so you can spawn in some zombies or even vehicles. F8 will allow you to view your frames per second, and if you hit it again, it'll toggle the current heat percentage of the area. And if you hit Escape, there's a whole bunch more options. You can see the POI teleporter over here. If you go into this, you can search your current map for a specific location and then just teleport there. On the right-hand side, you can see various options such as setting the day, time, and the time speed. And this over here is where the stability vision option is that I was using earlier. You can hit slash on the number pad specifically to become invisible. You can also hit the asterisk, again specifically on the number pad, to turn off zombie AI. And there are many, many more random keyboard commands, but these should be enough to get you started. Okay, now onto the creative menu. To open this, you'll want to press U. From here, you can search through the menus for all of the items and the blocks that are within the game and then just drag them into your inventory. You can tick this developer block icon here and search for dev, and this will pull up all of the specific developer tools. Most of them are colored like a pink-purple color. A couple of cool ones include the dig tool here and the dev pistol. The dig tool just lets you one-shot blocks, and the dev pistol lets you one-shot zombies. Okay, so now I'd like to go over a couple of helpful console commands, but you could also just type help, and this will list all of the console commands for you. A few that I often use include the set time function. Basically, it's set time space day space hour space minute. The next one is weather space simrand, that's SIMRAND space 0, which will reset the weather back to its default. So it's useful if there's a rainstorm or a snowstorm or it's foggy to just kind of set it back to default and skip over the storm. Of course, there's kill all, which will kill all spawned zombies. And finally, there's give self XP space and then whatever number of XP you want to give yourself. So, 99999. Just substitute the amount of XP that you want to level your character up a little bit or a lot of it. All right, so enough about that stuff and welcome back if you skipped that section. Now let's talk about mods, because there's a mod for everything. From basic mods that change the HUD or increase your backpack size to massive overhaul mods with new enemies, vehicles, weapons, and storylines. My current top 3 overhaul mods are Rebirth mod made by Furious Ramsey, Undead Legacy, which is made by Subquake, and Darkness Falls, which is made by Kane. They've added hundreds and hundreds of extra hours of enjoyment for me. And if you want to find some mods, you should go to Mod Nexus, or you can go to 7days2diemods.com, or you can check out the mod launcher. Here's my most up-to-date video on how to find and install and use all these types of mods in the mod launcher. And sometimes really the best way to learn is by observation. So if you want to watch me play and learn a little bit from me just by checking out one of my gameplay series, I'll link one for you right here. Otherwise, that will do it for my beginner's guide for 7 Days to Die. If you have any questions, just join my Discord server, and the invite is waiting for you down in the description as well. I hope that I've done enough to earn your subscription today. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you hopefully in the next video. Hey everyone, I just wanted to say thank you for watching, for leaving a like, but most of all, thank you to the long list of amazing supporters that you see right here. I hope this episode has earned your subscription, and I can't wait to show you the next one. Best wishes to all, and goodbye.